Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel called Living in Hayward, Wisconsin. I'm Audrey Miller. I'm the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the different areas within the region that I cover in Northwest Wisconsin, pros and cons of the different areas, why you may want to choose to buy a house or a lake cabin in the various areas in northern Wisconsin. And I'm going to delve into that in just a little bit. So hang tight. So maybe you're very familiar with this area in Northwest Wisconsin and you know the town names like Trigo and Minong and Winter and Birchwood and Cable. Or maybe you're looking at a lake cabin or a home on acreage or a second home of some sort in the country up here and you don't know much about this area of Northwest Wisconsin and you're kind of lost as to where you should look to buy your cabin or your lakefront property. So I'm here to kind of delve into that with you today. Again, this is Audrey Miller. I'm with Northwest Wisconsin Realty out of Hayward, and I cover an area about 45 minutes in any direction from Hayward. If you want to subscribe to my channel, I would love if you would do that and follow along. I have lots of informative videos about living in Hayward and the real estate market in Hayward, Wisconsin and surrounding areas. And you can also comment below if you have a topic you'd like me to cover or if you have some feedback on this particular video. Also, feel free to share my channel with your friends or family or other people who might be looking to buy or sell in and around the Hayward area. So I am based out of Hayward, and that is what I would call the center of the vacation community up here. One of the reasons that Hayward tends to be the center of everything vacation related in our area is because of the proximity to the biggest, clearest lakes. So if you watched my YouTube video about what lake should I buy property on in Hayward, I kind of delve into the different tiers of lakes and sizes and price points and all of that. So check that out if you'd like. But Round Lake, Lac-Courte, Grindstone are three, and the Chippewa Flowage really, those are top tier lakes in the area that are all in relatively close proximity to Hayward. The other thing about being closer to Hayward is just amenities in general. So because it's kind of the hub of the area, in Hayward you have a vibrant main street where you've got all kinds of shops and restaurants that you can go to if it's a rainy day or you want to just do something other than be on the lake or at your cabin. You also have mini golfing. You have the Fishing Hall of Fame in Hayward, lots of bars and restaurants, go-kart track, ice cream shops, just kind of all the things you might want to do when you're here on vacation and you want to kind of take a day trip or do something out of the ordinary. The other towns around the area do not have those same amenities. So that's one of the big differences between Hayward itself and the other surrounding areas in which I work as a real estate agent. Now, Cable does have a few bars and restaurants, and they have just a little bit of a main street with shops and some kind of unique cool little shops up there, a nice little coffee shop as well. But the rest of the area just doesn't have that downtown vibe and the shops and restaurants that you'll find in the town of Hayward. So that also means that price points in Hayward and around Hayward are the most expensive because of proximity to amenities. We also have a Walmart in Hayward. We have a large grocery store called Marketplace that has really good selections. And again, these smaller towns I'm going to mention after this do not have those same amenities. We have a hospital in Hayward. A lot of these smaller towns, you've got to drive maybe half hour, 45 minutes to get to a hospital or a clinic. So those are some of the reasons why you may want to choose the Hayward area. Some of the other lakes around the area are Nelson Lake, that has very close proximity to Hayward. And besides the four larger lakes that I mentioned, there's a number of smaller lakes that are maybe in the 200 to 500 acre range, or out east of Hayward a little ways, there's some quite large lakes that are over 1,000 acres, such as Lost Land Lake, Teal Lake, but you do have a little further drive to Hayward, even though Hayward is your closest town if you're purchasing property in those areas. Now let's talk about Stone Lake next. So Stone Lake is the younger sibling of Hayward in terms of desirability and proximity to desirable lakes and just ATV trails, etc. So Stone Lake is a very small town. There's only about 250 people that reside there. But there are 4 very nice tier 2 lakes around there: Whitefish, Sand, Stone, and Sisabagama, and a couple other smaller lakes. And Stone Lake does not have the amenities of Hayward, but you are only about a 20-minute drive to Hayward, depending on exactly where you are in the Stone Lake area. And Stone Lake itself has a really cool wine shop called Red Schoolhouse Wines. It has a restaurant that serves Italian food called Marie's Hideaway. There's a coffee shop, brew pub, I guess I would say, called the Whistle Punk. There's a laundromat there, and there's a couple other bars and restaurants around the area as well. So Stone Lake is typically a similar price point to Hayward. Really cool small town community feel, slightly further to some amenities such as hospital or Walmart. But really, the Hayward zip code is a large zip code, so you can be on Le Coudray or Grindstone and still be 20 minutes from the town of Hayward. So when I say Hayward, I'm talking basically 20 to 25 minutes in any direction, and that encompasses Stone Lake. So if that makes sense, they're kind of almost one and the same in terms of lakes, desirability, and proximity to amenities. Stone Lake just has a little bit like maybe more laid back vibe, not quite as much hustle and bustle as you get in Hayward in the summertime. So now delving into some of the areas that are further away from Hayward, and this is where you'll start to be able to find lakefront property for a little bit less. You get a little bit more for your money in the house that you buy. Even if you're looking for vacant land acreage, it'll be a little less expensive when you get away from Hayward, maybe a half hour or so. And additionally, a cabin in the woods. Everything is just a little bit cheaper real estate wise when you get about a half hour from Hayward and away from that hub. So the other areas that I cover, I'm going to kind of go clockwise with this. So to the north of Hayward, we have Cable. That's about a 20-minute drive, but it's a smaller town and it doesn't have as many lakes around there. You have Lake Namakogan and Lake Owen. There are a couple of other small lakes in that area. It's just kind of its own area in terms of the mountain biking trails, the skiing, the old Telemark Resort, which is now just it's not operating as a ski resort anymore, but that was in the Cable area. Cable really tends to attract not only people who want to be on the lake, but people who really like all the outdoor sports, such as biking, hiking, skiing, all of those types of cross-country skiing mostly. So Cable is a very, very desirable area, but one of the things also that makes it a little more difficult is that a lot of our second home buyers are from the Twin Cities or Rochester area, and Cable adds another half hour onto your drive. The lakes in Cable, the biggest lake is Lake Namakogan, and that's actually east of Cable. So till you get to Cable and then drive east, you could be at least a half hour further than Hayward. And since most of our second home buyers and vacation home buyers are coming from the Twin Cities, Cable gets to be just a little bit further. But very cool small town. There is one grocery hardware store there. There's a gas station and very pretty area up in Cable. And then north of Cable, there isn't much. There's a lot of Chequamegon Forest in the Cable area to the east and to the north, and State Forest. There's a small town of Grandview that's just like a blink of an eye to drive through. And Drummond is a little bit bigger, but very, very small town without too many amenities. And that's getting even further from like the Twin Cities area. If you're doing a drive on a weekend, it gets to be a little bit far for a lot of people. Now I cover about up to the Grandview area, and then that's as far north as I would go. So let's turn the clock towards the east, keep going around clockwise. So to the east of Hayward, once you get out past like Teal and Lost Land Lake and Spider Lake, which are still in the Hayward zip code, if you go south of there just a little bit, you're going to be in the Ojibwa, Radisson, Winter area. Winter is the furthest to the east, and then Ojibwa, and then Radisson, working your way back towards the west. And then there's a small town of Coudray as well. One of the unique things about the Winter and Ojibwa areas is the Chippewa River flows through there. So there is the Namakogan River in Hayward, but there are not many places that come up for sale on the Namakogan. The Chippewa River has a lot more vacant land that's still being sold on it, and cabins that come up for sale on the Chippewa River. The Chippewa River flows out of the Chippewa Flowage, has all kinds of fish in it. Very, very pretty river. It's not super deep, so most times people just canoe, kayak, or tube versus putting in a boat on that river. But the Chippewa River flows through those areas, so that's one plus of the Winter Ojibwa Radisson area if you're looking for riverfront property specifically. In terms of lakes, there's actually quite a few lakes in the Winter area. And I feel like Winter is kind of an up and coming area. The town itself is very small, but you have quite a few nice lakes in that area. And I think there's definitely good value to be had in the Winter area these days. So you have Lake Winter, you have Barker Lake, Barber Lake. Those are a little bit smaller. You have Black Dan Lake, Perch Lake. Those are the main ones around the Winter area. The town of Winter does have, again, a grocery store and a gas station and a hardware store. There's a couple of little restaurants, but if you go there, you can tell you're just a little further from amenities, a little further from something like a Walmart. You would have to drive about 45 minutes. So I think that's the main reason that the Winter area has slightly less for price points, is just the distance to amenities. And again, you're driving from the Twin Cities a little bit further. But if you like the quieter pace, if you like the outdoor sports, there's a very robust ATV and snowmobile trail system in the Winter, Ojibwa, Radisson area. The Tuscobia Trail runs right through there. So that's like a main corridor for snowmobiling and ATVing. So there's a lot of good things in that area. And then if we keep going down around towards the 6 on the clock, I'll say, we get to the areas of Exeland. And that's about as far as I go in that direction. Exeland is even a little bit more in the middle of nowhere than Winter is. Very, very small town. And you're just kind of driving to somebody that I just talked to lately from Exeland. She's lived there for quite a while. She said it's like a half hour to everything from Exeland. And that's about how it is. You know, you can go to Rice Lake, you can go to Ladysmith, you can go to Hayward, but you're going to be 30 to 40 minutes from all of those towns. But again, good for the outdoor type activities like ATVing, snowmobiling, those motor sports that are outdoors. Not too many lakes in the Exeland area. There's Windfall Lake, maybe a couple other small ones, but that's not a big lake area. And I think that's part of the reason why the properties are a little more affordable there. And then if we keep going to the south, we'll get to the Birchwood area. Birchwood has several really nice lakes and has a decent sized town. I think Birchwood is a great place to buy a cabin or a lake home because Rice Lake, the town of Rice Lake, is not too far from there. So in Birchwood, you've got Red Cedar Lake, part of Long Lake comes down towards Birchwood. And then there's White Birch Lake. Several other lakes in that area. Lake Chautauqua is also in the Birchwood area. And the town of Birchwood itself does have a little main street. It's got a few bars and restaurants, a great pizza place. There's a nice gas station there. But it's kind of similar in size to the town of Stone Lake, maybe just a little bit bigger. But that's a really great area for lakes or off-water property. And price point wise, it's kind of in between like the Hayward area versus the Winter area, for example. And then I can't list every single town, but I'm hitting all of the main ones. If you look on a map, you'll see what I'm talking about here. So if you keep going around, I don't go quite as far as Rice Lake typically, but we do have agents in our office. One of our agents lives by Rice Lake, so I could refer you to her. Then you have, if you keep kind of going around, there's not many towns between Birchwood till you get over to Spooner and Shell Lake area, which is an area that I cover. Again, the one benefit of this area is that you are closer to the Twin Cities for your driving distance to come to your cabin. The Spooner and Shell Lake areas actually have a lot of nice lakes. Shell Lake itself is a very clear, large lake, about 2,500 acres. And then Spooner has a lot of little lakes. The biggest one there is Spooner Lake itself, which is around 1,100 acres. Again, vacant land is available in these areas if you're looking just to build a cabin or to buy a cabin on a couple of acres. But there's a ton of small lakes around the Spooner area. Spooner can have a little bit more of a feel of farming and forest, whereas when you get up towards Hayward, there's really not much farming country. Spooner has a little more farming country, but the town of Spooner is actually pretty big. It's around the same size as Hayward. It just doesn't have quite as many of the vacation type activities that you might want to do, like go-karting or mini golf. But it does have a main street with shops on it, quite a few bars and restaurants, and the town itself is of similar size to Hayward, plus it's a little bit less of a drive from the Twin Cities. So that's the Spooner area. And then if you continue around to the west, you will get to the Minong and Trigo areas. And this area is full of small lakes. The Minong flowage is about 1,500 acres. That's probably the biggest one, but there is a ton of 300 and 400 and 500 acre lakes in this vicinity. Again, you're going to be a little bit further from amenities, so price points are a little bit less than Hayward. The other thing I would mention about the Minong-Trigo area is it's what I would call sand country. And what that means is that it has very sandy soil there, which is good for conventional septics, but it also has a lot of scrub pines or scrub oak that grows in sand. Now, there is some nice forest there as well, so I'm not categorizing all of it like that, but there is a lot of tracts of land that kind of have that more scrubby forest on it. So if you're picturing hardwoods with, you know, tall maples and oaks and birches and aspens, you might not find that quite as much in the Trigo-Minong area. So that's one, it's just a matter of preference, but something you might want to know about that. And again, you're going to drive a little bit further. So you can drive to Spooner. Really, otherwise, you're driving, you know, the whole way up towards Superior. So it's kind of, it is a great area. You just have to be prepared to drive a little further for even a grocery store or amenities, because most of the lakes are actually to the west of Trigo and Minong, and you'd have to drive into the town of Minong to get to a grocery store. I know I'm talking a lot about amenities versus price point and different things about the areas, but really that's kind of what it comes down to. How close do you want to be to amenities? Do you mind being a little bit further and maybe being able to afford a little bit more in terms of a house, whether on vacant land in the woods or on a lake? Or do you want to kind of be at the hub of things on one of the tier 1 lakes around the Hayward area? And then if we finish going around the clockwise here, you will get to Barnes and Gordon. Gordon is a little bit far for me to go, so I don't do a lot of work there, but Barnes is within the area that I cover. And again, very small town, kind of in the middle of the woods, but some really nice lakes there as well. And I hope that this gave you some idea, not only of the geographic area that I work within as the broker owner of Northwest Wisconsin Realty Team, but also what you may or may not like about certain areas and what those areas are kind of known for or what they specialize in. We have such beautiful, clear lakes up here. We have beautiful forests. We have an extensive ATV and snowmobile trail system. We have very nice people that are down to earth, and I would be more than happy to help you to buy or sell your home in the area that I cover. And I appreciate you following along today, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more information about the area and about real estate.